she's a spy?
Okay, so yes, she is a Confederate spy. Rose, we're going to have a number of these. Rose Greenhow is probably the most famous Confederate spy. Well, one of them anyway. We'll get to the other one here in a minute. Rose was feeding information to Stonewall Jackson right up to the beginning of the battle. She would use her slaves to carry messages back and forth, and she existed for most of the war in occupied territory. She's right up in the north, and the armies of the Union will occupy her town for most of the Civil War. She was captured in August and found to have continued her activities, even while she was in captivity. So she was imprisoned for 5 months in Washington, D.C. And while in imprisonment, she continued her spy activities using a system of codes from her window, the window of her apartment, to send messages to people riding back and forth on the street that they then carried to the Confederates. Yeah, really like this woman. But the most famous, the reason that she is the most famous Confederate spy, she went to England. They deported her to the Confederacy, and the Confederacy sent her to England to drum up support for the war. While she was there, she published accounts of her spying and made a little bit of money and collected some gold to bring back to the Confederacy. In 1864, she was on her way back to bring the gold to the Confederacy to aid the war effort when her ship was intercepted by a Union blockade ship. She climbed overboard into a rowboat and rowed herself to shore, but just before she got there, a wave capsized the boat and she drowned because her dress had the gold sewn into it in case she was captured.
Oh my gosh, that's the greatest story.
Is that awesome? Rose Greenhow is, I love this woman.
She's my hero except for she's for the Confederates. But besides that.
Yeah, Rose was actually captured originally by this guy. This guy, oh yeah, the diamond necklace affair? Yeah. Woo-hoo-hoo, yeah. Okay, this guy is the guy who captured her. She was captured 2 or 3 times. That's a recurring theme we're going to see today.
Why didn't she wear pants?
You couldn't wear pants.
Yeah, I know.
They burn you at the stake if you do that. Ask Joan of Arc. You can't wear pants.
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy was the guy who was responsible for ferreting out her secret activities. Who is this guy? Any guesses? In American history, the most famous detective period is Sherlock Holmes. This is the most famous detective in American history, and he's actually real, which is kind of fun.
Oh my gosh, there's a detective agency called Pinkerton.
There is. There still is. But for years and years, the Pinkertons were the ones who guarded U.S. mail shipments, Wells Fargo deliveries. Pinkertons become one of the most famous security and detective agencies. Yes, this here is Alan Pinkerton. And he is the one who detected and captured Rose Greenhow. But he didn't have a whole lot of success in shutting down her activities. They confined her to house arrest in D.C. But then people came to visit her because she was interesting. And so she charmed them and got secrets out of them and kept sending them to the Confederacy. So you can detect them all you want, but it's not always going to be successful. Aaron is going to really, really love this woman here. This is Belle Boyd.
Belle Boyd?
Belle Boyd.
Belle Boyd.
Belle Boyd. Belle Boyd is also called the Cleopatra of the Confederacy. She began her career as a thorn in the Union side when she was 17 years old. Union soldiers had come to her house and were berating her mother and hanging a Union flag on her house and treating her mother with contempt And so Belle went, got her father's pistol, and shot one of them dead.
Oh, yeah.
She was arrested and then acquitted by a Union tribunal. She was acquitted by a Union tribunal of murdering a Union soldier, which she admitted she had done.
But she's super hot, so.
Yeah, that's a recurring theme for Belle Boyd. So she started passing secrets when she was 17. She looked so young that she would just dress as a child, and the Union soldiers paid her absolutely no attention. She slipped back and forth through their lines all the time. Once she got where she was going, she would put on the big flowery dresses and hoop skirts, and men fell all over her. She got married 5 times.
Holy. Wow. Right.
3 times to men who had arrested her or had been assigned to guard her.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Hey,
wow.
listen, I know this guarding thing's really working out for you, but what if we just got married?
What if we just got married? I'm super hot. I'm super hot, so you should. And they're like, okay. Yeah.
Be really
The South is awesome. Yes, the South is awesome. We should pass secrets to the Confederacy. Yeah, we totally should. Men are hopeless. So, true. Yeah. They posted, once she got arrested, she was acquitted, but then they sent her back to her house to watch her activities. And one of the guys who was watching her activities fell in love with her and married her. This happens to her. Oh, this woman is something else. Okay? Fell in love with her and married her and joined the other side. She turned him and he became a Confederate spy, even though he was a Union captain. I love it. Poor Daniel Kelly. Oh, she's awesome. Her slave's name was Eliza Hopewell, one of the unsung heroes. And she would carry messages back and forth in a hollowed out watch case. So she'd have one of those those dangling watch cases with no watch inside, and she would have crammed into it all manner of information. Because she was black, she wouldn't get searched. So here's a story that I thought was fun. One evening in mid-May of 1862, a Union group had gathered in a local hotel. Boyd hid in a closet in the room and watched and heard everything through a knothole that she had enlarged with a knife she carried with her. Okay, so she heard everything that had happened, and that night she rode through the Union lines using false papers to bluff her way past the sentries, and reported the news to the Confederates. When the Confederates advanced on her town later on, a couple of days later, she had gathered new information and she ran through the Union lines to General Jackson, to Stonewall Jackson, to report on all the troop movements. The Union guys shot at her. They put holes in her dress, but they missed her. And she got to Jackson and said, "There's only a few of them. If you hurry, you can catch them all." And Jackson's like, "Okay," and captures the whole Union garrison because of Boyd's information. She was awarded the Southern Cross of Honor for this. And then eventually one of her lovers gave her up, turned her in, and she was arrested and placed in the old Capitol prison in Washington, D.C., and ordered to be held in close custody. Within a couple of weeks, she had turned the jailer, and he helped her escape to the Confederacy.
My hero.
She was arrested again, sent back to Washington. I'm not making this up. She was arrested again, sent back to Washington, D.C., and ordered to be held in close custody. She smuggled out plans, troop movements, all kinds of things. They could not. She's Milady. If you read your Three Musketeers, this woman is Milady.
Oh, yeah.
She corrupts everyone and everything around her. She was arrested a third time and was again set free by they just couldn't hold her. Like, oh, she's so nice. We can't. So they just couldn't hold her. The amazing woman died in 1900. She was an actress, gave a speaking tour around the country, made lots of money. And yes? Nothing? She's awesome. You're going to want to know ask your brothers about her later. You're going to want to know who this woman is. What?
And they captured them.
And they escaped, yeah. There were actually also some Union spies. The best ones were, of course, also females. So here is...
So nothing cool happened.
You know her. This is Harriet Tubman. We talked about her before. She was an incredibly effective Union spy because she could dress up as a slave and pass through. Nobody paid her any attention. Great spy getup, by the way, is any kind of a servant. Janitors are especially good. But waiters, janitors, anybody who's a servant, because people don't pay attention. Elizabeth Van Loo is this woman here. She was raised in a wealthy slaveholding family, but it harmed her conscience, and she freed all of her slaves, all of whom stayed as paid servants thereafter, so it sort of looked the same. She was just outside of Richmond. Okay? Everyone hated her, and she died friendless and alone in 1900. She lived quite a long time. This is Elizabeth Van Loo, L-E-W, Van Loo. But she was a very effective, and she was a Quaker, which is one of the reasons she had strong anti-slavery sensibilities. So that's just a few. We don't have time to talk about a lot of them. But this woman probably should get as much of the credit for what was happening with Elizabeth Van Loo as Elizabeth does. This is her slave, Mary Elizabeth Bowser, who is a very important spy for the Union inside Confederate lines in and around Richmond, was originally the slave of Elizabeth Van Loo and was manumitted and operated as a free servant from that point on. Yes?
And her son made all the Mario games.
And her son made, yes. And her son made all the Mario games. The founder of Nintendo. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Okay, we have just a couple minutes to talk about the Western Front of the war. We talk a lot about the stuff that happens around Washington, D.C. and Richmond. This is where the main stage was. But the most important part of the war, at least early on, was happening in the West.